Avoiding Windows 10 update restarts at inopportune times. Hi everyone, I'm Leo Notenboom for AskLeo.com, where I've been answering questions like this one and sharing opinions, which you'll hear, since 2003. Today's question is such a common one with the release of Windows 10 5 years ago. Let's read this one. I was headed to the airport, fired up my laptop to arrange for parking, and the first message was Windows needing to update before I even signed in. Of course, I was in a hurry, but the update took a stressful 5 minutes while it prevented me from logging into the parking site. I was afraid to force reboot because it might leave my laptop in an even worse state. Yeah, this is one of the annoyances in Windows 10. It has gotten better. Absolutely, it has gotten better, but it is still an occasional pain in the butt. So I've got a couple of different approaches to dealing with the problem. The first one is really all about taking control of the situation. But first, we need to talk about updates and restarts. The reason that an update will often require your machine be rebooted or restarted is actually very simple. When it's running, Windows is using a large number of files, including the program files that make up Windows itself. If one of those files needs to be updated, well, you can't update a file while it's in use. As a result, what ends up happening is the update process leaves instructions in a specific place so that when the machine is rebooted, the file that needed to be updated can be updated before Windows actually starts. The result is most updates of Windows itself will at some point require that you reboot your machine for the update to be completed. And to be clear, this isn't a Windows thing. This is something that is true for every operating system. Macs do it, my Linux machines do it. It's the same problem and they're solving it the same way. The best way, the only way to replace a file that is in use by the operating system is to not run the operating system. And that means making those changes before the operating system starts running, which means you have to reboot to get to that point. Now, let's talk about putting this all under your control. I call this taking updates on your own terms, and it's really very simple. When you've got time, you know you're not running to the airport, sit down every once in a while, once a month, once a week, whatever makes sense for you, and take the updates manually. By that I mean go into the Settings app, go into the Updates and Settings portion of Settings, and check for updates. And keep checking for updates until there are no more updates available. You may end up rebooting your machine a time or two, but when you're done, you'll be relatively certain that no updates are pending. You're not going to be surprised by a required reboot the next time you run your machine. If you're up against a deadline, if, for example, you're about to take off to the airport the next day, great. Take all the updates the day before so you know that that's not something you're going to have to deal with at the last minute. Option number 2, pause the updates. Recent versions of Windows include the ability to pause updates completely for 7 days. Actually, for up to, I think it's 35 days, 7 days at a time. This is great for when you're about to take that trip or make that presentation or do whatever. Flip over to Windows Update, make sure you're up to date, and then just hit pause for 7 days. That way you'll know Windows won't try to take any more updates until that time has elapsed. Option number 3, and it's perhaps the most commonly recommended option whenever I look for answers for this kind of problem elsewhere, is to set active hours. What active hours means is you're telling Windows, I use the machine from, say, 8 in the morning until 5 at night. Windows will not try to reboot your machine during that time. Fantastic. All the other times you're in your office, at home, working hard, Windows won't try to reboot your machine. But to go back to the scenario that started this question, What about that early morning flight that you're about to take that's outside of your normal active hours? Yeah, you may not want Windows to reboot at that point in time. But I do want to list it as a reasonable approach for a lot of people who are concerned about rebooting at the wrong time, rebooting during the day when they're trying to get some work done. Normally, Windows will actually make it pretty explicit when a reboot is needed that they will notify you and it'll say, okay, I'm going to reboot outside of active hours. So that means that as long as your active hours have been set, and in fact, you're active only during the active hours, the machine won't reboot while you're trying to use it. Once the active hours have passed, say the middle of the night, Windows is free to go ahead and do whatever it needs to do to keep itself up to date. Make sure to get notified. This is something that I think a lot of people overlook. There's actually an option in Windows Update settings that allows you to tell Windows you want to be notified when an update is going to require a reboot. This should prevent you from ever being surprised by an unexpected and required reboot. Finally, again, searching for this particular problem on the internet, turns out that there are a lot of recommended, what I'll call hacks. My recommendation is that you avoid them all completely. In fact, most of the hacks that I've run across when researching this particular problem, they just don't work anymore. So you're back where you started, even though you've applied what you thought was a solution to the problem. Generally, hacks, and by that I usually mean doing random registry edits that some random site on the internet is advising you to do, not only do they often not work, or not only do they often stop working after a while, they can be dangerous. It is just something that I can't officially recommend, and I certainly would not recommend for something like this. My primary recommendation, the recommendation that I follow myself, is to, if I care about these things, force the update. Take control of it myself. Visit Windows Update and take all the updates until there are no more updates to be taken. That's the safest thing to do, and it keeps everything absolutely in your control. For links related to this and the original article on which this video was based, visit askleo.com/124348. I'm Leo Notenboom. This is AskLeo.com. Thanks for watching.